And welcome everyone to the P.A.S. Report podcast. It is your host, Nick Giordano, and I am going to be joined by a very special guest. I have co-founder of Moms for Liberty, Tina Descovich, here at the P.A.S. Report, talk about everything that's going on because the mothers are the ones that are really going to decide the future of this country and where we go from here. So, Tina, I'm so glad you could be here. How are you today?
Doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
I'm glad you're here. You just had a wildly successful conference a few weeks ago over in Florida. And can you just tell the audience about what it was like at the conference, the electricity, the atmosphere, and the environment?
Sure. So we weren't in Florida. We actually had our second
Ah,
annual summit in Philadelphia. So we were in Pennsylvania, in the place where liberty was born, where our Constitution, Declaration of Independence, and the Bill of Rights were written and drafted and adopted. And it was just fantastic to be there, surrounded by history. We had 700 moms and some dads there. Over about 4 days. We had five presidential candidates there speaking to us. The energy was fantastic. The camaraderie is so uplifting to our moms. You know, they're out on the front lines around the country, really battling in their communities, and so it just feels great to be around like-minded people. That being said, we also had hundreds of protesters for 4 days, which we can dig into a little if you'd like.
well, you got to expect the protesters, especially when you have an organization like the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is a horrific and horrible organization. I just want to make that clear. Where they came out and they actually labeled you as threats and radicals and potential terrorists. So when you saw that and then you saw the protest, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, they labeled us an anti-government extremist group. You know, it's really interesting if you look at the big picture of what's happened to Moms for Liberty itself and the parental rights movement over the last year and a half, as we really started gaining traction and impacting policies and winning school board elections. The first big act we saw taken against us was the Biden administration and the Department of Justice issuing a threat tag and directing the FBI to investigate parents and moms that were coming to school board meetings. I think that was a big failure for them. They were actually calling some of our moms after they spoke at school board meetings, asking them questions like, you know, are you an extremist? Do you have mental health problems? Do you have a gun in your home? Also, don't tell anybody we
That's
called.
outrageous.
Yeah, it's a complete weaponization of the government, an overstep of what they should be doing, and I think it backfired on them because we exposed them, and so they scaled back on that somewhat. But now what we know is through some public records requests is that Southern Poverty Law Center, guess where they've been the last several months? 6 visits to the White House they have had over the last few months. So I guess this is their plan B. Plan A didn't work. So now they're going to use a private nonprofit to smear us to try to, silence us. But what happens is, if you've followed the news the last few years, in 2012, Family Research Council was targeted by the Southern Poverty Law Center as a hate group. And a guy got really upset about that, went and got a gun and went to their office and threatened to kill them. And it's because when he was deposed, he said, it's because I saw that on Southern Poverty Law Center, you were a hate group. And so somebody needs to put an end to what they're doing. And, you know, allowing the federal government and the Biden administration to collude in that fashion to silence Americans is really unacceptable.
Yeah, it's frightening. And I actually warned about this in June of 2021. The Biden administration released a national strategy for countering domestic terrorism. And in this document, you see it's vague. It talks about anti-government, anti-authority sentiment. So if you question government, if you question the policies of government, you're going to be labeled as a potential domestic terrorist threat. And in Pillar One, it talks about organizations, private organizations out there serving as the eyes and ears of the government. So, and I refer to the Southern Poverty Law Center because I know how they operate. Is Moms for Liberty? I hope you do. I hope you take a page out of Ayan Hirsi Ali's book and Majid Nawaz, who sued the Southern Poverty Law Center for tarnishing their reputation after they were declared threats. They were declared anti-Muslim threats because they dared to criticize radical Islamic militants. And is Moms for Liberty considering all legal avenues against the Southern Poverty Law Center?
Yeah, we have had quite a few meetings over the last couple weeks as we work through what our options are. And I think we'll be moving forward with some of those options in the near future.
Yeah, this has to stop. I mean, your organization, this is actual grassroots organization, right? This is what our founding fathers wanted. They wanted ordinary people to get involved in the system so that they could have their voices heard and make a difference. When you started this organization from the ground up, what was it like to see the growth and how quickly it exploded? I mean, you have chapters all over the country, including my backyard of Suffolk and Nassau County.
Yeah, some of our greatest, that's some of our greatest two chapters right there. We've got Brianna and Barbara there running those chapters. They are amazing ladies. I'll
They
tell you,
are. And I've
I'm
met them
home.
both. They're great.
I'm working from home today. I'm actually in my back guest bedroom right now, zooming with you. This is where Moms for Liberty started. In this room, $500 and a box of t-shirts. And we have grown now, as you probably know, to almost 300 chapters in 44 states, 120,000 members. We have watched it. It's just remarkable. It was an idea in our head. We saw a need. We saw moms that needed help. We were just going to be in Florida January 1st, 2021 when we launched. And then Barbara from Nassau County Googled help. She needed help. She's like, I see what's happening. I'm a mom. What can I do? And I don't know what she put in Google, but Moms for Liberty came up. The website that I built in this room on a 10-year-old computer that took like a month because it just, it was 10 years old. Everything, I tried to make a graphic and it would spin and I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never built a website.
Crash.
Yeah, yeah. And so Barbara emailed our, website and said, "I'm in New York. I see you're just in Florida. I would like to start a chapter here." And she had her phone number, so I called her, and she laid out what was going on and how much worse the situation was in New York than it was even in Florida. And so I called Tiffany, my co-founder, and I said, "I know we just wanted to be in Florida, but we've got this woman in New York." And I said, "I don't know anything about education in New York. She has like 40 different school districts just in her county. And here in Florida, it's one school district per county. It's very clean and easy to understand." And Tiffany said, "Tina, this isn't ours to hold close. This isn't our movement. These moms need help." And so I said, "Okay, I guess we'll figure out education in New York." And then a week later, somebody in Maryland, and a week later, and before we were in 44 states.
And you hear from moms all across the country. What is their number one concern? Like, if you had to boil it down to what their number one concern is, what's that?
I think if the big picture is education failure. If I had to just give it one title, you can break that down and it looks different from community to community. 2/3 of American fourth graders are not reading on grade level. So a good portion of school districts across the country are just failing at the basics to teach kids to read. And so a lot of our moms are very concerned about that. But then, secondary to that is the curriculum and the stepping on parental rights and teaching kids things that not only you wouldn't teach them at that age, but things that you are opposed to your children learning, that they're in direct opposition to your beliefs as a family. It's really, my heart aches for some of these parents that are in states where, like New Jersey, where the whole state has adopted comprehensive sex ed. That's not sex ed like you and I had when we were kids. That's not, when I was a kid, it was a film strip, like beep, beep, with, the physical, attributes.
The miracle of birth, I remember.
Yeah. Yeah, the biology of it. No, this is teaching 4 and 5-year-olds that they can be a boy or a girl, neither or both. They can change from day to day. Families don't want that, by and large. We know that. It's not just Moms for Liberty. Parents in general across the country do not want their 5-year-olds being taught at school that they can change their gender.
No, they certainly don't. It amazes me that, you do have, as you rightly said, that 2/3 of the student body can't read at grade level. I mean, we have 12th grade textbooks written at the 7th grade reading level, and it just shows you how pathetic our education system has become. Most students are unaware of how American government works or operates. Only 23% meet basic proficiency in American government and civics. 11 to 13% meet basic proficiency in American history. I mean, it really is a disaster when you look at it, and yet they want to waste their time talking about issues that shouldn't be brought up in a K-6 system or a K-12 system. I mean, I can make the argument that some of these issues shouldn't really go into a classroom in high school either. It should wait till college if you want to have these debates.
You are absolutely correct. It's a kind of a cover up. When you look at it, it's like, look over here, so you don't notice how bad it's failing. And it's an excuse for education failure. Well, the reason we haven't been able to teach 2/3 of American kids to read is because America's racist. And everybody goes, oh, that's the problem. Like it's disgusting.
It really is. And there are actually a lot of teachers that do support Moms for Liberty, that support the organization. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because there's this misconception that groups like Moms for Liberty, people like myself who teaches political science at college level, there's a perception that we don't appreciate the teachers. No, we actually appreciate teachers. They reach out to us and we try and help be their voices.
Yeah, what I see, and this would just be anecdotally, I don't have the stats to prove it, but I also live in a red county, but the teachers I know and appreciate, the teachers my children have had are good people that just want to teach. And I believe majority of teachers in America truly are that way. In some states, they have no choice but to belong to a union who's taking their money and using it for things that they are completely opposed to. In other states, they intimidate them into taking their money by just simple ways of saying, well, what if you get sued? There's going to be no one to protect you. And then they use that money for things that they are diametrically opposed to. It's really unfortunate. But I think most teachers, in my opinion, they just want to teach, and a lot of them come to us publicly. We have teachers that are chapter chairs. I can think of one in Indiana right now who's led a chapter for 2 years and done a great job and put herself out there. In other places, they come to us quietly. They bring us the stuff they're asked to teach. They bring us the trainings that they have been through, and they say, do not use my name. I will lose my job, but please expose this. And we're happy to play that role. That's what we're here for.
And it's funny because you have people like Randy Weingarten, who is the head of a teachers union, who comes out and criticizes Moms for Liberty, yet she was single-handedly responsible, one of the people that was single-handedly responsible for keeping schools closed in a lot of areas for nearly 2 years. Obviously, Moms for Liberty is an outgrowth of the response to the COVID pandemic and the school lockdowns. When you began to learn what children were learning on remote education, when it began to get exposed, was it worse than you actually imagined?
Well, I don't know if you know, but Tiffany and I are former school board members here in Florida. So we served from 2016 to 2020. We didn't know each other. We were in different counties, but we had a lot of the same experience. Like I said, I'm in a red county. A lot of our teachers are great. But when you're on the school board, we have 100 schools in our district, 75,000 students, 9,000 employees. You see everything. And even here, teachers sometimes would pull down assignments from Teachers Pay Teachers. That's a website teachers use all across the country. There's standards aligned to a lot of Common Core, which most states are still on. And even in Florida, you can say, I need Florida standard, 5.3 under civics, and I need an assignment. And teachers build these assignments and they look through it. And some of the stuff, I will say, every time garbage was brought to me by a parent when they were upset, I would find out where it came from, and it was always Teachers Pay Teachers. There's some bad stuff on there. Sometimes teachers don't know, and sometimes they're just like, oh, that sounds like a good assignment. When I was serving, an assignment came to me that a parent brought. It was an environmental science class, and the final essay said something like, Donald Trump purchased land on the Indian River Lagoon, which is here where we live, and it's environmentally protected and it's always under threat. But Donald Trump purchased the land across the Indian River Lagoon, and his daughter dumped waste in it. And it was just, it was just trashing, made up, completely made up, so that they could understand the environment. And the parent brought it to me and they said, why? Why is this necessary? Like, what? This they're influencing my child in the way they would think about Donald Trump, who never purchased land on the Indian River Lagoon or dumped anything in there. And when we researched it, it was Teachers Pay Teachers. It was an assignment that came off of there that a teacher pulled down.
It really is crazy. It's insane. And it's getting worse, not better, unfortunately. In certain areas, it is getting better. But overall, the education system as a whole has fundamentally collapsed, in my opinion. This is a new school year coming up. There's a lot of parents that are just returning their children to school. In New York, school starts in a couple of weeks. What should parents be on the lookout as they begin to send their children off to a new school year?
They need to be checking those backpacks. I just cannot say enough about looking at the curriculum. Get plugged in with your school district. Ideally, get plugged in with your Moms for Liberty chapter. Start reviewing the curriculum. All school districts do a curriculum review period. Usually it's on cycles. 1 year they'll do English and history. The next year will be math and science. But the books are on a cycle somewhere. So get with your chapter, figure out when those are, get a team together, review what they're being taught. Also review the lesson plans if you can. Even good teachers, sometimes things slip through. And everybody just needs to be on high alert. It's your parental duty, if you're going to put your child in public education, to be plugged in to the policies of your district and the curriculum that your children are being taught.
And what do you do? I'm sure this has happened. I'm sure there's been moms that have come to you where you have a lot of nefarious individuals within the education system that are now trying to hide certain things from parents. They're trying to hide stuff that they're teaching them. They're trying to hide certain clubs that they have after school, that they want to make sure parents don't find out if their child's changing the gender in school. How do you navigate that? Because I think that's the biggest fear, is what we know is easy. What we don't know is much more difficult.
So the biggest problem is there's actually policies in place at districts and at state levels that allow that to go on. And so that's one of the things we do in our organization, is we help organize at the local school district, but also for state legislation. And we've had it passed here in Florida over the last 2 years in multiple states around the country, parental bill of rights that make sure and codify that parents, we always knew parents had the fundamental right to direct the upbringing of your children, but now it has to be put into statute and into law in every state.
It's amazing. It's actually in the mission statement of the Department of Education, the United States Department of Education, that parents are the drivers of their child's education. They've forgotten that part, but this government's forgotten a lot about the Constitution and statutes and all that.
Yes, you are 100% correct. And so now, we have to take it back step by step. But I would tell parents to start at your school district level. You can get policies passed much quicker at your school district level than at your state level. And that could be things that have to do with like book challenges. Make sure you have a policy in place where parents have the right to bring a book forward that they're concerned about. And there's a process that you can go through. Some districts don't even have that. Parents have no ability to say, this book is porn and it's in the school, what can I do? We need to have policies in place. There needs to be policies in place about transparency. You need to have people on the school board that make the district put the budget online so it can be seen. Everything needs to be open. And when it's not, and when your school district's pushing against you, you do public records request or FOIA request, whatever it's called in your area, and you find the information you need and you share it with people. You push it out to the public.
And if there's still, let's say, FOIA requests, because I'm familiar with them, a lot of people aren't, but it can be like pulling teeth, especially when it comes to schools and getting information from schools. They try and fight it tooth and nail. If parents run into a situation, how can they get in touch with Moms for Liberty to help them?
Yeah, so it depends on where you are. I always recommend getting in touch with your local chapter. You can always go to momsforliberty.org. We have a big map. You click on your county and you can find your chapter leader super easily. I think locally is always the best way because they have the connections on the ground of who can help locally. Sometimes the best thing you can do with those things is publicly shame them, find somebody to write an op-ed about it, that they, it's been 6 months and they want $20,000 for one page that you've requested, or whatever nonsense they're pulling this time. You want it in the paper. You want to speak about it at the board meeting. You want to find 50 friends to come and speak about it at the board meeting. And you just have to pressure them until they do the right thing.
Yeah, and parents need to know what their rights are in the education system. I mean, we have the Every Student Succeeds Act, where parents actually have the ability to sit in classrooms. And again, schools will give the runaround, but it's your right to do that. So you request it. If your child is in high school, I don't advise it. They'll hate you if you're sitting in the classroom.
Yeah, no joke.
When we look at this, have you begun to see, are you optimistic that changes are coming? I mean, you see the impact your organization has had on hundreds of thousands of people. I know you have over 100,000 members, but there's many more than that that actually go to Moms for Liberty, look at the resources, seek help. Do you feel optimistic going forward that change is coming?
I absolutely do. When you think about, it's been decades since conservatives have had eyes on public education. I'd say in the 80s, conservatives started to say, oh, there's a problem here. What should we do? Oh, we should do school choice is what they came up with, which I love school choice. I think parents should have a right to put their kid in private school, public school, homeschool, charter school, whatever. I love options. I think kids are so different and the way they learn is so different. That is not the solution. And we know that because 75%-ish of kids are still in public education. And one side has been completely dedicated to their worldview and making sure the kids that come out of public school have that worldview, which is why we see what we see right now in our culture, why the riots were happening in 2020, why nothing was happening to the people that were rioting. It's my belief and
But
our
if
belief.
you wore a mask, if you tried to go into a store without a mask, you were tackled by store security and told to get out.
And I blame that solely on one, worldview being in charge of public education for a very long time. And I put that on the backs of conservatives that completely ignored public education for decades. I watched it firsthand while I served on the school board. I watched the local Republican Party ignore it, the state Republican Party ignore it. I've watched presidential debates for years. The Republican candidates don't even discuss education, sometimes not mentioned even one time. Super frustrating to me. The biggest win, I think, for us right now is we are pushing, and it is looking like it is happening. The number one domestic issue is going to be education and parental rights for 2024.
Yeah, and I found this frustrating in 2022 because in September, we found the COVID learning loss, the actual data was released, and it was astounding how devastating it was to students to keep them out of schools on remote learning. And then once you brought them back into school, you forced them to wear these masks for 6, 8, 10 hours a day. And it was a devastating impact. And you didn't hear a lot of Republicans talking about that. They should have been in every inner city screaming at the top of their lungs, this is what they did to your children. Tina, where could people, they could go to your website, find Moms for Liberty. We're going to have links up at the P.A.S. report. As far as Twitter, Facebook, are you on all the social media platforms?
We're on it all. Moms for Liberty is how we are on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We have a podcast you can check out on Apple, Spotify. I think we're pretty much everywhere you look. You can find Moms for Liberty and get plugged in.
Great. So I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for coming on. We're going to have links up at the P.A.S. report to the social media, the podcast, and the website as a whole. And everyone needs to check out Moms for Liberty. It is a great organization trying to repair the damage that has been done by the career bureaucrats that have destroyed the education system. So thank you so much for coming on, Tina.
Thank you so much.